Hey everybody, today I'm taking a look at Revive, which is a 1 to 4 player Euro strategy game published by Aporta Games. This one takes around 90 to 120 minutes to play on average. Now before I get started on my review of Revive, I want to give a shout out to KIENDA.co.uk, who are my go-to online retailer and the place where I acquired Revive. And if you check out the link in my show notes or the QR code, then you can get 5% off your first order. Okay, so I've just finished a 3-player game of Revive here, and you can see here on the main board you have all these modular tiles. Now at the start of the game there will only be a few of these face up and the rest of them would be face down, but you can see as I've played the game more and more of these tiles have been flipped over, but they would initially start looking like this, and you will of course flip these over as you go exploring. You have the score track to the left of the board here, which can give you bonuses when you reach certain checkpoints. You have these big artifacts, which can be a very important factor when it comes to endgame scoring. You have this hibernation track down the right hand side of the board, which again can give you bonuses as you fly up. And each player has their own personal setup, which looks somewhat like this, where you have your main board, which tracks all your kind of technologies that you are unlocking and building throughout the game, which will give you kind of powers that maybe the other players don't have, but some that will give you little boosts and boons as the game progresses. In the bottom right hand corner of your player board you have your resources. So you have 4 different resources here. You have these crystals, which are kind of like wilds. You've got your gears, you've got your books, and you've got your food. And you can see here that you are capped at having 6 of them. Now also on this player board you have a number of these card slots where you'll play these cards in order to use their abilities, and we'll touch on that a little bit later. And also attached to your main board you have this kind of personal power board here, your little kind of character that you're playing, which will have a unique technology tree and will give you unique benefits. But this will also hold your additional components, such as these meeples that you'll put down and get points if you deploy more of them. So you can see here that I've already deployed these 2 at the end game, or these 3 at the end game. Therefore, I'd get 6 points for those. You've also got some small buildings and some large buildings, and you are going to start with a basic hand of cards. You're going to start with 6 of those, but you can acquire more from this pool of cards as the game goes on, and they'll kind of get better and let you do different things, etc. Now you can also see, which I didn't mention here on my main board, is that you can unlock these little discs by moving these little progress tracks along. So you can see here you've got 3 different technology tracks. And when you reach certain checkpoints, you will unlock these spots, which will not only give you more technologies, but they'll also end up stacking you points the more you get. So you can see here at the end of the game, I got an extra 7 victory points. Now explaining how this game works is fairly difficult because it does have a somewhat sandboxy feel to it, but I suppose the best way to explain is kind of the ways you're getting points. So first off, you're going to get points by flipping over these tiles. Now when you flip over these tiles, you'll get a number of points on them, and it's going to cost you this many resources in order to do it. So in order for me to flip over this tile, it'll cost me 2 food. I'll get a point for that, and I'll also get to draw a new card from the display. Another way you can get points is what we've already mentioned, by unlocking all of these kind of technology discs, and the more of those, the better. You'll also get points based on your personal objective card that looks like this, where at the beginning of the game, each player is going to get randomly distributed one of these, and that'll be a number of different things you're going to score points for. So you can see in my particular setup, I'm going to get a point for every unique lake space that I have my buildings next to. So you can see here that I've deliberately deployed next to these lake spaces. I'm also going to get a point for every deployed little meeple I have done. So if I've got 3 of those done, that would be 3 points here. And I'm also going to get a point for every 2 of these little slot modules that I've invested in, which you can see here. I've done quite a few of those as well. However, if you ever end up acquiring these artifacts, which you're probably going to passively do, the more you collect, you can start allocating them to these different spots. So you can see here that this colour matches this colour, meaning that I'm going to score this category another time. And you can do this as many times as you like. And another one of the main features in how to get points is by these large locations, which are on the extremities of the map here. So you can see here that in this particular game, only one of these was actually used by myself, the yellow player here. And you can see here, much like my my goal card, I'm going to get an extra 2 points for every unique lake space that I'm next to. But there are a ton of these, and they are double-sided, such as, you know, for every space up this track you've gotten, for every meeple you've got deployed, you get this many points, for every card you've taken that's not in your starting hand, etc. Just a few more things to touch on during setup is that you have a display of these different things here, such as these 3 different stacks of these technology discs. They come in 3 different colors, which relate to your personal player board. You've got the little selection pool of the slot modules, which you'll of course add to your player board. And you also have these little crates, which are little lucky dip boxes, which will give you little bonuses, and you can cash them in when you like and flip them over to use or collect what's inside of them. So let's take a look at the turn structure and what you can do on your turn. So on your turn, you have the option to either take actions, and when you do that, you can take 2 of these 5 possible actions. You can duplicate the same ones if you want to, or you can do what's called a hibernate action. Now, more often than not, you'll be taking actions, and let's talk about what they all do individually. So the first one you can do is that you can play a card. And when you play a card, you're going to have a look at the ones at your immediate disposal here, and you are going to decide whether you want to use the top part of the card or the bottom part of the card. And this is going to relate to your player board again, because you can only ever use the top action if you actually tuck them in like this, so you have the top part showing, but much like the top part, you can only do the bottom part if you tuck them into the bottom part of your board like this, and you'll need to have an empty card slot for you to do it. So you can only start, well, you do only start with 4 of these card slots, but if you unlock this middle technology, you can unlock this 5th card slot like I've done here. So let's just say I wanted to play this yellow card like so. I could tuck it in this side here like that. If a colour matched one of the slot modules, or one of the colours on the slot modules, then you'll get the bonus ability. So I believe this colour matches here because I'm colourblind. So the yellow and the yellow, that will get me an extra gear, which would give me an upgrade here like so. And of course I would get my 2 food. And this is the only option where you can actually flip it either way. So it's quite a flexible spot, this one here. And those cards are going to be tied up until you do certain things. So essentially, yeah, those cards are going to be giving you your resources. They're going to let you climb tracks. They're going to let you convert resources to points. Lots of different things, you know, converting resources to resources, giving you little engine benefits, different things like that. So that is what's called the playing a card action. Now, the second action here is where you flip this little switch here, which will give you any resource of your choice. So it's going to start on the green like this. As an action, you can slide it down like so, which will give you any of the basic resources of your choice. So a very minor action there, but still a very useful one. And the 3 main actions are going to relate to either revealing a tile, placing a building, or placing one of your meeples. So let's start with the explore a tile action. So as I explained earlier, you are going to have to spend a number of resources depending on the tile that you want to flip. However, you may have to spend some additional resources depending on how far away your pieces are from that particular tile. So in this example, I'm right next to it as the yellow player, therefore I'm not going to have to spend any additional resources. I can spend the 2 food, flip it over, and I can place it in any direction, which can be important, and that will relate to the building action. But if I am, say, farther away, like I am here, like I'm not right next to this tile, I've got 1 space between me. So for every hex that I have to pass through to reach the tile I want to flip, I have to spend an additional food. And that is described as kind of evaluating the range of your action. And that applies to the other 2 actions as well. And whenever you do flip over these tiles, you are going to consider how many points you get. And also you are going to have the option to add a new card from the display to your hand. The build a building action is pretty simple, where you are going to either spend 3 cogs or 5 cogs, depending on if you want to build a small or large building. If you do pay those resources, then you are going to take the relevant building and you're going to place them on the map, again, using that range mechanism. So again, if I wanted to say build here, there's a 1 gap between my components already on the map and where I want to build it. Therefore, I would have to spend an additional food to calculate that range. Now, whenever you place a building down, you're going to have a look at what surrounds it. So you can see here that I'm next to this grey track. Therefore, I'm going to climb up the grey track. If I'm next to this green track here, I'm going to climb up the green track or the yellow track. And if I'm ever next to one of these lake spaces, then I'll also get that benefit. And these are generally better, but you can only get them once. So you can see here that I've already built a building here. Therefore, I will not get to get that bonus again because I built here. Now, the only difference between the small buildings and the large buildings is that if you place a large building next to these arrow spots, like, let's see if I can find a good spot here. Let's say I went here like this, then I actually get double the strength of the arrow benefits here. So I'll actually go up 2 up this track, add another 2 up this track. And of course, when you move up these tracks, you're going to follow the lines like this that go to 4, to 5, to 6, to 7, and so on. And if you ever reach certain spots, like, you know, if I ever got to space 10 here, then I would reveal this and so on. But you can see that some of the spots have multiple colors on them, meaning that I'd have to reach a certain number on both of those tracks. So I'd need to reach at least 6 on the gray and 12 on this track as well in order to unlock this ability. And you can see some of the other bonuses here are, you know, getting crates. If you build next to these gems, then you get one of these gems for your personal resources. You can get straight up victory points. You get to kind of go up any track you like, get a slot module of your choice, etc. And the final basic action you can do is to deploy one of your helpers, or these meeples, from your personal player board. And they do have to follow this technology track. So in order for me to get to the top one, then I'll need to at least unlock the ones below it. So you're going to start here and move upwards. And all of these player boards have different powers on them. Some are duplicated, as in that middle spot there to unlock that 5th card slot. But they all do different things. So you can see in this particular clan, I have this Kunaban board. It says I can gain a resource with each new card. So whenever I take a new card into my display, then I get the matching colored resource. Now, much like the build a building action, you are going to spend resources in order to deploy these people on the map. However, this time you spend books instead of gears. And if you ever share a spot with somebody else, which you can do, and bearing in mind you can only ever build on these location spots, either the small ones like this or the large ones to get those extra points. If you share a spot with somebody else, you have to pay them an additional book. Now, if on your turn you do not want to, or you cannot play any of these basic actions, then you have to do what's called a hibernate action. And this is kind of like a refresh step in terms of your gameplay. So the first thing you are going to do is that you're going to take any cards that have previously been discarded and add them back into your player area to give you a lot more options to play the cards that you want. And then you're going to remove all the cards from your card slots to that discard area. So it almost works a bit like a deck builder where you are always cycling these cards in order to use them again. It's going to take a little bit of time to get them back. That's the first 2 things you're going to do. And then you are going to reset your energy onto here. And we'll touch on this next. So that we're going to go back to the middle, ready to be used again. Then you are going to refresh or reset your switch, ready to use that action again to collect that resource of your choice. And the final thing you're going to do is you're going to go up the hibernation track like so and trigger either the ability on the space you've just reached or any below it. Now, at any time during your turn, you can use one of these bonus actions by spending this energy. And this does not consist of you using one of your main actions. So you can do this as many times as you like, as long as you can afford it. And if that technology isn't already used. So let's talk about some of these I've got on my personal player board here. So this one here would allow me to convert food into points. This one here would let me to convert resources into crystals. Just give me a straight up crystal. I convert gears into points. Let me use the top half of my card and instantly discard it, ready to be used again when I hibernate. Increase my range and so on. And you can see here that some of these spots are inbuilt to the board, like this one here. But some of them, when I reach certain spots, I'll have the option to draft the particular technology I want from the display up here. And that is essentially how the game works. You're going to keep on taking your actions until all of the artifacts have been taken, and this is going to depend on the player count. There's going to be more or fewer of these available. As soon as that final large artifact is taken, that player is going to get this little bonus token here to get an end game 4 points there. And then everyone else is going to get one more turn, and then you're going to add up all the points you've got from in the game. You're going to add up all the points from your bonus card. You're going to add them for these large objectives here, so all these large locations, all the discs you've placed down, and any bonus points you've got from your boards, etc. And of course, the player with the most points at the end of the game will be the winner. So apologies if my explanation there was a little bit all over the place, but I find this game out quite difficult to kind of explain, because it's not linear at all. You are kind of just left to your own devices and are left to figure it out all by yourself based on your initial setup and what the game, or how the game has been set up, not only because of the the large locations, but mainly because of your private objective. So this is definitely a huge part of the game, especially if you start picking up these matching artifacts and really amplifying your scoring there. So you do have to be quite aware of what you're going for here and kind of sticking to your plan, because if you end up meandering and not really focusing on anything, you can find yourself falling behind and lacking focus, I suppose, and that will definitely cost you. But I suppose all whilst you're trying to achieve your points, you are always trying to play as efficiently as you can, and some of the efficiencies, the synergies, the combos, the forward arc in terms of energy, engine building and progression is quite outstanding in this game, and definitely one of the defining features of it, because whatever you do, you're always getting new technologies. Some of those are tailor-made depending on what you've drafted. You're managing your energy, knowing when to reset them, managing your resources, improving your player board to give you more options and actions. Some of them might have unique engine or kind of these energy places where you can put your energy to use them. Each of your clans has a unique ability on them. So yeah, tons of things to go here, and again, it all ties back to which actions are you going to take to be the most efficient? How are you going to manage your hand of cards? Am I going to use the top half? Am I going to use the bottom half? Will some of these cards let me string actions together like this one does? And if I'm going to use the top half, I'm going to sacrifice the bottom half for quite a while unless I can find a way to get it into my discard pile straight away to get them back when I next use my hibernation actions. So everything here, despite it being quite a simple framework, the depth and the kind of layers of the onion do start to unravel quite quickly, and you can certainly start to understand how there is more to this game than first meets the eye. But getting the people down is useful because you want to be building up this engine as much as possible, because these are all very useful options. They'll give you the options to get more of these large artifacts, which will again massively improve your end game scoring, as well as giving you straight up points here. That might even tie hand in hand and synergize with other goals you're going for, such as actually getting the people on the map, and so on. Even being able to do things like you can unlock that next card slot, being able to use the top half of a card, being able to cash in gems in order to retire already played cards into your discard pile, meaning that when you do the hibernate action, you get them back immediately. Some of the turns you take in this game can be immensely satisfying, especially if you do things such as building these large buildings next to these very juicy spots on the board. And if you remember, the large buildings give you double the rewards of these track movement bonuses, and when you do that, that's going to kind of really lean into a whole cascading effect of improving your player board, getting loads of new powers, unlocking the disc as you go, which is going to give you more points. Sometimes they'll come with bonus things such as getting you more energy, which means more bonus actions. When you get points, you're going to go down the track even more, which might give you other little bonuses as you go, such as these crates. The crates will give you other things. So you can really see how a simple action to start with can really transform into something massive. I like how these character boards are double-sided, so each one comes with a simple basic side as well as an advanced side, so you can really tailor that to who you're playing with. If for your first few games you might want to stick with the basic mode here, so you can really focus on the kind of core mechanisms, but as you get more and more familiar with it, you might want to try and perfect your skills at a certain character and utilize their ability to the max. Now, the game actually comes with 6 of these characters, 4 of the ones you start straight up, and an extra 2 that you start with a campaign. Now, I must admit, I've not tried the campaign. I'm not overly interested in doing a campaign version of this because I tend to dip in and out of games and not commit to the same game again and again and again, which that would probably benefit. But it's nice to see that you can tailor that game to how you want to play it. And even if you want to avoid the campaign altogether, I believe you can use all of the components you would unlock during the campaign in a standard game as well. I do like this decision on when to use your hibernate action, because it can be very useful, of course, because you get to recycle all the cards that are in your discard pile to use them again. And of course, you get to reset all your energy, etc., to use all your powers again. But if you play your main actions really efficiently, then you can actually postpone this quite a lot by constantly refreshing or keeping these slots free, because there are cards that let you do that. There are cards that let you reset your energy, and of course, if you are spending your time hibernating each time, you are essentially not being efficient with your actions, because you're not grasping the land, you're not doing other things when people are doing that. So I do like that efficiency puzzle of how long can I manage this hand of cards? How long can I prolong my actions and play efficiently before I have to basically bypass my action in order to do and hibernate? Now, it can be useful because you do get benefits as you do it, such as getting these slot modules, crates, etc. But generally, you are not being action efficient. So to summarise what I've spoken about so far, I think from a mechanical standpoint, this game is pretty much outstanding. There's not much I can complain about at all. It's remarkably smooth, considering the depth and layers to your decisions here. And the fact it always boils down to these 5 basic actions is quite remarkable. So yeah, that cascading effect of simple actions, but the consequences and fallout and domino effect of those actions is great. I think the player engagement is generally good. Now, I would personally stick at playing this at 1 to 3. I think that 4th player isn't going to add tremendously more to the experience apart from prolonging the game length, because with that 3rd player you are still going to have the land grab of trying to get to the best spots if you are sharing those objectives. And I do find it generally engaging. Even if it's not your turn, you are mulling over your resources, thinking out, what do I need to do? How can I pull off this big move? Yes, sometimes, despite the actions being simple and quick to resolve, sometimes they can lead you down a bit of a path, because again, one thing will string to the next thing, will string to the next thing, and sometimes turns can be longer than others. But I don't think that's to a point where you're going to lose interest or be bored when it's not your turn. On the whole, I think the production for this game is good. It certainly looks nice when it's on the table. It's got a good presence there. The card art is pretty great. Same goes with the board art. So yeah, in terms of the artwork, no complaints whatsoever. I like the way that the boards look and the way they work. Everything's got its place. They are dual layered, so things aren't going to slide around when it comes to your resources and things. So yeah, no issues there at all. I suppose the only problem I have with this game is that if you are colorblind, the orange and the green look remarkably similar. It's quite difficult for me to, almost impossible for me to differentiate the orange and the green tiles and the orange and the green tracks on the board here. So that's a bit annoying. And also 2 of the player pieces look identical to me as a colourblind person. Okay, so let's share some final thoughts on Revive. Now, this is a game where when I played it the first time I played it solo, which is a thing I don't normally do, but I wanted to see how it worked, how it functioned, and I must admit I found myself a little bit lost with it, because I thought, well, this game really isn't on rails. The kind of what you do from the get-go isn't overtly clear at first, and when I played it more, I started to realise, you know what, look at your card, assess the board, and just stick to the game plan. I think once you start doing that, the game becomes quite enjoyable indeed. I think this is a very sophisticated game. I think it's polished. I think it's smooth. And I think this game has legs in terms of sticking around for a while, because the framework itself is so simple and pure, but the potential of options beneath that can be huge. And I think we've even just scratched the surface of what this game can do, because just think about it, this game could come with a bunch of different player powers. It could come with a ton of different technologies that have not been even thought of yet. New cards, new objectives, kind of tacked on mechanisms that can be used to amplify the experience here, all staying true to that smooth kind of 5 action system. So I really do think these games are the ones that have legs. These are the ones that are going to stick around. So I think the more I'm playing this one, the more I'm starting to appreciate it. And to be honest, I think it's a fantastic design. I'm really enjoying it at the moment. It's surprisingly easy to play and get to the table. And despite having tons going on here, it does have a slightly laid back feel to it, where you can just kind of enjoy the process, getting new technologies. It was very satisfying to keep on racking up these discs here and getting points there. The card play is fun. The resource management is fun. And there's only 3 resources there and that wild one to play with. So I think they've definitely done a great job of editing here, not going too much, but not making it too basic to the point where it's, not innovative or not interesting. They've definitely struck that perfect chord for me for what games, or how I like my my games to be in terms of their complexity and weight. And I'm actually really excited to try some more of the clan boards. I might even get tucked into that campaign mode. And I'm interested to see how I can do well at this game, because I think a big portion is really focusing on these endgame cards here, and of course trying to amplify them by collecting these gems here. Now, I suppose the only maybe slight criticism I have on the game is that if your public objective here your private objective matches the public objective, you might have a bit of an unfair advantage if your opponent does not have that. Maybe I'm missing something there, but I can see that being a bit swingy if you can double up or triple up on a certain scoring category when your opponent didn't have that option. And that did almost play out in this game here, where I had fully invested in going next to the lake spots because of this board here. I ended up collecting a ton of these, and I ended up collecting this spot here as well. And by the end of it, I was scoring half of my points simply for that one scoring category, whereas my opponent didn't do that. Therefore, it was kind of a landslide win, and maybe that could leave people feeling disgruntled at times, but at the same time, maybe you should be assessing the board a bit more and blocking those spots, preventing a certain player from doing it. But I find the process enjoyable anyway. Apart from that, I really don't have anything negative to say at all. And those, of course, those colorblind issues. But the game itself, I think, is something special, and I can see this climbing my ranks quite quickly the more I play it. So without a doubt, this is one of the best games of 2022. Probably a top 3 game, maybe even top 2. That's how much I think of it. And I think it's downright excellent. I can see why it's getting so many good reviews and good feedback from Eurogamers. So that is my final thoughts on Revive. Without question, this is a chairman's commendation. And again, I can see this one climbing higher and higher as the years go on.